It is the most frustrating cycle in the modern world. You wake up motivated, you go to the gym, you sweat, you eat a salad for lunch that leaves you feeling hungry an hour later. You count every single calorie, and yet, when you step on the scale at the end of the month, the number has barely moved. Or worse, it has gone down, only to bounce right back up the moment you relax. Your body feels like it is fighting you. It feels like your metabolism is broken. But then, you look across the ocean to Japan, and you see a paradox that defies everything the Western diet industry has told you. Japan has an obesity rate of just 4.5%. In America, that number is over 40%. But here's the confusing part. The Japanese do not starve themselves. They do not cut carbohydrates. In fact, they eat white rice, a refined carb, at almost every meal. They eat noodles, they eat fried tempura, and they almost never go to the gym. How is this possible? For years, we were told it was just genetics. We were told they are just lucky. But science proves that is a lie. When Japanese people move to the West and adopt a Western lifestyle, they gain weight just as fast as anyone else. Their genes do not change. Their environment changes. So what is the secret? The answer lies in what scientists call metabolic architecture. The Japanese lifestyle is not a random collection of habits. It is a scientifically perfect system, a blueprint designed to manipulate your hormones, regulate your insulin, and trick your brain into feeling full long before you have overeaten. They have unknowingly built a culture that hacks the human biological code. Today, we are going to dismantle that code. We are going to analyze the 9 specific scientific mechanisms that keep the Japanese slim effortlessly. We are going deep. We are going to talk about the physics of your stomach lining. We will explain how a specific savory taste communicates directly with your vagus nerve to shut off hunger. And we will reveal how you can turn your own gut bacteria into a factory that produces natural weight loss drugs. This is not about eating sushi. This is about rebuilding your body's engine. Let's decode the metabolic mystery. Let's start with the most critical error in Western eating, the sequence. In the West, when we are hungry, we attack the carbohydrates first. We grab the bread roll. We take a bite of the pasta. We dig into the mashed potatoes. This seems harmless, but biologically, it is a disaster. When you eat naked carbs, carbohydrates on an empty stomach, that glucose hits your small intestine like a tidal wave. It absorbs instantly. Your blood sugar skyrockets. Your pancreas panics and floods your system with insulin. Insulin is the storage hormone. Its job is to take energy and lock it away in your fat cells. When insulin is high, fat burning stops completely. You are in storage mode. Now look at a traditional Japanese meal, or kaiseki. You never start with the rice. There is a specific cultural order. You start with the kobachi, the small vegetable side dishes, pickled cucumbers, spinach with sesame, simmered radishes. This is not just tradition, it is a biological shield. When you eat vegetables first, the soluble fiber travels to your stomach and intestine. It mixes with water and forms a thick, viscous gel. Think of this gel like a safety net. It coats the lining of your small intestine. So 10 minutes later, when you finally eat your white rice, that glucose can't rush into your bloodstream. It gets trapped in the fiber net. It has to trickle through slowly. A landmark study from Weill Cornell Medical College confirmed this mechanism. They found that simply eating vegetables and protein before carbohydrates reduced post-meal glucose spikes by up to 73%. 73%. That is the difference between a metabolic crash and stable energy. By simply changing the order of the fork, the Japanese are eating rice, but their bodies are processing it as if it were a low-glycemic vegetable. Next, let's look at the umami trap. Why is it that you can eat an entire bag of potato chips and still feel hungry, but a bowl of miso soup makes you feel settled? The answer is not volume. It is neurochemistry. Western snacks are designed to be hyper-palatable. They are high in sugar and fat, but low in protein. This combination essentially short-circuits your brain. It never sends the stop signal. Japanese cuisine is built on a different foundation, dashi. Dashi is a broth made from kelp and fermented fish. It is pure umami. Umami is often called the fifth taste, savory and rich, but biologically, it is the taste of glutamate. Here's the fascinating part. Your stomach has specific receptors for glutamate. When you drink a warm, umami-rich soup like miso at the start of a meal, those receptors light up. They send a direct message up your vagus nerve to the brainstem. The message is simple. We are eating protein. We are getting nutrition. This signal triggers the release of satiety hormones much faster than sugar or fat does. By starting the meal with this savory umami trap, the Japanese are hacking their brain's appetite center. They are pre-satisfying their hunger before the main course even arrives. They feel full, not because their stomach is stretched to the bursting point, but because their brain has been chemically satisfied. Have you ever noticed that in America we serve food on giant platters? A single steak, a mountain of fries, a huge pile of pasta. In Japan, a meal looks like a collection of samples. It is called ichiju sansai, meaning one soup, three sides. You have a tiny bowl of rice, a small piece of fish, a saucer of pickles, a bowl of soup, a dish of simmered pumpkin. It looks like a lot of food, it covers the whole table, but the total caloric density is actually very low. This exploits a psychological loophole called unit bias. Your brain is terrible at judging calories, but it is very good at counting things. When you finish 5 different small bowls, your brain registers 5 units of food. It feels like a feast. If you took all that food and dumped it into one big American bucket, your brain would register 1 unit. It would feel small. Furthermore, this variety prevents a phenomenon called sensory-specific satiety. This is what happens when you get bored of one flavor. You eat the burger, you get tired of the salty taste, so suddenly you have room for a sweet dessert. By having sour pickles, savory fish, bland rice, and salty soup all at once, the Japanese hit every single taste bud. The brain gets a full spectrum of sensory stimulation. The craving for something else vanishes because you have already tasted everything. Now let's talk about nature's version of Ozempic. Right now the world is obsessed with weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy. These drugs work by mimicking a hormone called GLP-1. GLP-1 is a miracle hormone. It slows down your stomach emptying, so you stay full for hours, and it tells your brain to stop thinking about food. But did you know your body can make its own GLP-1? You just have to feed it the right raw materials, and the Japanese diet is full of them. The secret is fermentation. Japan consumes massive amounts of fermented foods, natto, which are fermented soybeans, miso paste, tsukemono, or fermented pickles. When you eat these foods, you are not just feeding yourself, you are feeding your gut microbiome. Specifically, you are feeding the good bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate is the key. When your gut bacteria produce butyrate, it stimulates the cells in your intestinal lining to release, you guessed it, GLP-1. By eating fermented foods daily, Japanese people are essentially microdosing themselves with natural weight loss hormones at every meal. They do not need an injection. They have miso soup. Next is the 20-minute gap. There's a famous phrase you'll hear in Okinawa, the island known for having the most centenarians in the world. Hara Hachi bu. It translates to eat until you are 8 parts full, or 80%. It sounds like ancient wisdom, but it is actually pure neuroscience. There's a communication lag in your body. It's a design flaw in the human system. When your stomach stretches, it sends a signal to your brain to say, "I am full." But that signal travels slowly. It takes approximately 20 minutes to arrive and be processed. In the West, we eat fast. We inhale our food. By the time we actually feel 100% full, we have actually eaten 120%. We have overshot the mark. The Japanese habit of stopping at 80% is not about starvation, it is about calibration. They stop eating when they no longer feel hungry, not when they feel stuffed. And then they wait, they drink tea, they talk, and during that pause, the 20-minute lag catches up, the signal arrives, and that 80% feeling transforms into a 100% feeling of satisfaction. They land the plane perfectly on the runway, while the rest of the world crashes into the terminal. Now, let's talk about exercise, or rather, the lack of it. If you go to a gym in Tokyo, it is often empty, but if you look at the train stations, they are packed. In the US, we have a sedentary, active lifestyle. We sit in a chair for 10 hours, and then we run on a treadmill for 45 minutes to burn it off. Biologically, this is inefficient. The Japanese rely on something called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Because owning a car is expensive and parking is impossible, Japan is a walking culture. They walk to the station, they stand on the train, they walk to the office, they climb the stairs because the elevator is crowded. They are in a state of low-grade, constant motion from morning until night. Why does this matter? Because of an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase. This is the enzyme that grabs fat out of your bloodstream and burns it for fuel. Here's the catch. This enzyme falls asleep when you sit down. After just 60 minutes of sitting, your fat-burning enzymes drop by 90%. Because the Japanese are constantly moving, forcing their muscles to contract lightly all day long, they keep this enzyme switched on. They are not burning 500 calories in 1 hour. They are burning an extra 500 calories spread out over 12 hours. And because it is low intensity, it does not trigger the massive hunger spike that a heavy gym session does. It is invisible calorie burning. Next, consider the thermic effect of temperature. In America, we love ice water, we love iced coffee, we love iced tea. In Japan, water is served at room temperature. Tea is served hot. Soup is served piping hot. This seems like a preference, but it has a metabolic consequence. Your stomach is a muscle. Like any muscle, it works better when it is warm. Cold liquids shock the stomach. They can constrict the blood vessels and slow down digestion. But warm liquids do something else. They relax the pyloric sphincter, the valve at the bottom of the stomach, allowing food to move smoothly. More importantly, warm fluids like soup increase the volume of the meal without adding calories. When you fill your stomach with warm liquid, you trigger the stretch receptors in the stomach wall. These receptors tell the brain, there is a lot of volume in here, we must be full. By combining high-volume, low-calorie warm liquids with their meal, the Japanese are physically tricking their stomachs into feeling fuller on less food. It is a volume hack. Then there is the fat oxidation of tea. You cannot talk about Japan without talking about green tea. It is everywhere. It is free in restaurants. It is in vending machines. But this isn't just flavored water. It is a pharmacological agent. Green tea is loaded with a catechin called EGCG. epigallocatechin gallate. This compound has a unique ability to interact with your nervous system. It inhibits an enzyme that breaks down norepinephrine. Norepinephrine is the hormone that tells your fat cells to release their contents. When you drink green tea, you keep norepinephrine active in your system for longer. Clinical studies have shown that this can increase fat oxidation, the rate at which your body burns fat, by up to 17%, even when you are resting. It essentially turns up the idle speed of your engine. If you drink 1 cup, it does nothing, but the Japanese drink it all day long. They are constantly bathing their cells in this mild, fat-burning signal. Over a year, that adds up to pounds of fat that are burned off simply by sipping tea. And finally, we have to look at how the day begins. In America, breakfast is often a dessert in disguise. Pancakes with syrup, cereal with sugar, orange juice, which is essentially liquid sugar, muffins. We start our day with a massive glucose spike. This sets us up for a crash at 10 a.m., which leads to a craving for a donut, which leads to another crash at 2 p.m. We spend the entire day riding a glucose roller coaster, constantly fighting cravings and energy dips. Now look at a Japanese breakfast. Grilled salmon, miso soup, rice, egg, natto. It is savory. It is high in protein. It is high in healthy fats. Why does this matter? Because of cortisol. In the morning, your cortisol levels, your stress hormones, are naturally high. This is what wakes you up. If you add sugar to high cortisol, you create a super spike of insulin. You are telling your body, store fat immediately. By eating a savory breakfast, the Japanese stabilize their blood sugar right out of the gate. They do not trigger the insulin surge. They do not trigger the mid-morning crash. They start their day in a state of metabolic stability. And once you start stable, it is much easier to stay stable. So when you look at these 9 reasons, you see the truth. The Japanese secret isn't a gene. It isn't a magic pill. It is an ecosystem. It is a series of small, scientifically sound choices that work together to protect the body from the obesogenic environment we live in. They use fiber to block sugar. They use broth to hack satiety. They use fermentation to boost hormones. And they use movement to keep their engines running. The best part, you do not need to move to Tokyo to get these benefits. You can build this architecture in your own kitchen. You can start tonight. Here is your Japan-ify your life checklist. 1. Buy a bag of frozen vegetables. Steam them and eat them before you touch your dinner carbohydrates. Build the safety net. 2. Buy miso paste. It is cheap. It lasts forever in the fridge. Drink a cup before your meal. Trigger the umami trap. 3. Gift smaller plates. Seriously, use salad plates for your dinner. Hack your visual bias. 4. Switch your breakfast. Try eating leftovers from dinner instead of cereal. Break the sugar cycle. 5. Never eat until you are stuffed. Eat until you are not hungry. There is a massive difference. You do not need a gym membership to lose weight. You need to understand your biology. Your body wants to be healthy. It wants to be lean. You just have to give it the right instructions. The Japanese have figured out the code. Now, you have it too. If this deep dive into metabolic science opened your eyes and you want to learn more about how to optimize your body using truth, not trends, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Healthy According to Science. We don't guess, we follow the evidence. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.